I'm busy making pumpkins today, and I thought, you know what, let's take you through how to make a pumpkin because it's so incredibly easy. Now all my videos are for absolute beginners, so you don't need to know anything to do any of the projects that I'm going to show you. Okay, a pumpkin is the most easy thing to start with. I've seen videos where people say, you know, make a ball, you know, you can do 1 or 2 coloured balls or whatever. However, I think a ball you have to be quite exacting, don't you? So, you know, it needs to be completely linear, completely round and spherical. Whereas a pumpkin, they have a bit more personality. They're not always willing to be put in a shape box. They can, you know, they can be tall, they can be short and stumpy, they can be round, they can be more like a donut. So pumpkins are very forgiving for a beginner. So we're going to do a beginner's little workshop here. Okay. So first of all, the equipment that you will need. All right. Do not spend a fortune when starting out anyway, because there's just no need to. This little pad here, the little felting pad, this just came with a beginner's felting kit an eon ago, but you can still get them if you're going to buy just like a little cheapy kit to start off with. That's what I do. I don't really use anything massively expensive, and I had this one kicking about, so I'm still going to use that. The filling, now everything that you do in felting all starts with a core. Okay, so you can get your core wool from the various places online where you can get all your felting wools from. However, like I said, I'm from Yorkshire, so a bit of a cheapskate running through my blood. So this is toy filling. So after my years of knitting and crochet and making toys, I've always made toys. I use toy filling. It works equally as well as core wool. Probably it's not as good quality, but who cares? It's about the finished result. And actually what's more important is what you're going to put on top of your core. So this is just your guts really. This is your skeleton of everything that you're gonna make. So this for the pumpkin today, I've weighed it out and it's 10 grams. Okay. Now your needles, again, don't get too wrapped up in needles, because, you know, every craft has an element of snobbery in it and people will get all kinds of posh fancy needles. You don't need that. That's what I've found so far. You do not need all the expensive equipment. So I'm using 3 needles, but you can use 2. Okay, so my first needle I'm going to be using is to start and join. I've even written it on here because my memory is so appalling. So that's my start and join needle. Now that's a green triangular 36 gauge. Okay. Now the higher the number goes, the finer the needle becomes. So your lower numbers, my 36 is going to be for starting, just getting that core down a little bit, compacting that. Then I'll move on to a red 38 triangular. And that's really to firm it up, to firm the piece up, and also for joining as well, if you're going to join pieces together, which we're not really doing on this because we're just going to do a pumpkin, but it's going to look amazing. Okay, and the last one I'm going to use, this one is a blue 40 triangular, and that's for your details and just to smooth it out a little bit. So we're not even going to be touching this little guy until we add colour. So I'm just going to move him out of the way so he doesn't confuse things. I'll give you tips throughout the video just to make your life easier. Okay, my first tip is going to be colour coding your needles. So when I work on any piece, I colour code them. Now I'm limited on my colours, so in my mind I have red, amber, green. So my red is going to be my coarsest, my amber is going to be that mid firming and shaping needle, and the green will be for the finer details. Okay. In the absence of green, in the absence of red, that's my red, amber, yeah, that's my amber. So that in my mind is my red, because I haven't got a red, so orange I'll have to do. That's my amber, and I have got a green. So when I'm working on small pieces, because I tend to do characters and toys, I'd have my red, amber, green. It just makes it a lot easier, because there's nothing worse than keep referring back to, you know, your little chart and what's this one do and what's this one do. So I just try and make life easier. So we'll take this one out of the equation, like I said, for now. Just have some clippers to hand, more for later on down the line as well. So I'll take these out of the equation because we don't cut the wool. We will only be trimming just the little edges when we're doing the definition around the pumpkin. So I'm going to put those aside as well. Now for your colour for your pumpkin, you can do anything you like. I've got quite a few pumpkins behind me. I've done all kinds of colours. I did I think my favourite actually is the white, white, brown and pink. I love that one. So you can really have fun with the pumpkins. They don't always have to be orange. However, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to do a traditional orange pumpkin. Now this is carded Corriedale and it's marigold. Don't worry too much about anything other than just getting a colour and getting a Corriedale really, because that's the best. But you can use, when I first started out, I got my starter set. It's linked on one of my other videos, I believe, and it had lots of little packets of, it's like an acrylic, it's not really a true wool, but they were brilliant for starting. So again, don't worry, if you buy a starter kit and you've got those little packets of colours, fantastic, use them, they're absolutely great, they're fine. Okay, and my complementary colour, so this is going to be for my stalk, and the bottom, I don't know what you'd call that, and also the definition around the pumpkin, as you can see on the picture on the screen. This was gifted to, I'm not sure what this is. I think it's a Corriedale, it might be a mix. However, like I said, don't get wrapped up in all that kind of stuff. Just get a nice complementary colour, and that's what I'm going to be using, and that's going to look fantastic. Okay, so as I mentioned, I do weigh out what I use, because then going forward it just makes life easier. So I generally do a pumpkin for the size shown on the photo on the screen. That's a 12 gram 0.12. Okay, so that's easy to remember. And I tend to, as I do projects, I weigh things out, and then when I go back to do others, then I'm pretty standard across the board, and I know what kind of size it's going to come out as. So I bought this little these little scales off Amazon that weigh tiny amounts, and I won't tell you the jokes my family have had about my scales and what illegal purposes they could be used for. However, I do only use it for weighing out my wool, of course. So I just reset that, and what I've done for today is I've just weighed out 10. It's about 10, but I haven't got my actual bowl on there. But yeah, about 10 grams, and that'll be a great little starting point for you. Right, so let's get going. Just to say as well, down in the description on all of my videos, because I am prone to rambling, I will put some timestamps on there. So, you know, introduction, and then about equipment, and then when we start to felt the core, when we add the colour, and then details. Okay, the second video I'm going to do will be about embellishment. So as you can see on the photo down underneath me there, that pumpkin, all the pumpkins that I do, I like to put the little curls on there as well. So I'm going to show you how to make those. So don't be going and buying any embellishments or curls or anything like that, because I'm going to show you how to make those so crazy easily, and you won't have to buy anything specific to it either, I promise. Okay, so let's get going. Okay, so as I said, the lower the number, the thicker the needle, essentially. Okay, so high numbers equal fine needles. So we're going to start with our highest number. Now, do wear finger protectors if you've got them. Early doors, you'll probably find you won't wear them all the time religiously. I don't, because I just can't feel what I'm doing, and therefore I have to take the consequences of that. Hence my fingers at the end of the day always have little dots of blood all over them, because I do catch myself. Okay, so all we're doing is, the best way to start is just bunch it up like that, and then just start to poke in, being mindful of your fingers. So the process of felting is this. So your needles, you're never going to, I don't think you'll be able to see it on the camera. Nah. Oh, maybe. They're beveled, you see that? So these are triangulars, and that just refers to the shape of the little bevels in the needle. And then as you push that needle into the filling, it pushes the fibres into the centre, and therefore tangles the fibres, and that's why as you felt it gets smaller and you can form a shape. And don't get too hung up on the needles. I would say if you've got a beginner's felting kit, whatever they send, just use. They'll they'll say what they are. The chances are they're going to send you a 38, which will be absolutely fine for what we're doing now, starting the core. And they'll send you a higher number, and then you can add your detail, and that is essentially all you need. So please don't go mad buying anything at this moment in time. So I just keep bunching up and turn. That's really important too. I'm going to give you all these little tips that I wish people had told me. Keep turning as equally as you can. It's not so important when you're just trying to form a basic shape just to get going with, but try and be quite disciplined on going around and around when you're doing a round shape. Now I like my pumpkins to be more like a donut shape, I guess. I just think they look really good, and that's what I'm going for. But you can go for a rounder, you can go for a tall, and that's what I mean by pumpkins are a great first project, because you end up with something physical that you've actually made, rather than just, you know, you're showing someone a circle that you've done. I've done a ball, which isn't so thrilling. Whereas a pumpkin, you actually have something that you can display or you can gift if all's gone well. So I just love them. I just think they're great. They're really forgiving, fantastic for beginners. You can see this starting to get rounder now, yeah? So just keep going in. Just keep going round and poke, poke, poke. It's so therapeutic. I sit here doing this for hours. Now you can get multi-tools to speed this process up, okay? Now, because I love my craft so much, I am quite happy to sit with one needle and sit for as long as it takes on whatever size piece that I'm working on, and I'm quite happy because I love the process. But when you are trying to make something on a deadline, you can get your multi-tools, which essentially you can put 3 or 4 of these needles in, and it will felt things down a lot quicker. Okay. You can see it really starting to take shape. It takes shape surprisingly quickly as well. I do apologise, I do have a cup of tea on the go, but I am kind of officially working but showing you at the same time. So my history, I've taught needle crafts in schools, but it was knitting that I taught in schools. I founded Angel Bear. Some people may have heard of Angel Bear, and I worked on that for a few years until such a time that, for personal reasons, divorce, ending up with 5 kids on my own, those kind of reasons, I needed to return to nursing financially, and I lost my mum to cancer around that time as well. We needed to kind of, me and the kids, get a bit of financial stability. So so I've nursed all in for 20 years as a sister and a matron, and managed nursing homes. Then we had Noah, who's my youngest of 6, because I remarried, and Noah has some medical problems, so I'm now his full-time carer. So originally Greg was his carer for his first 4 years of his life, and I was just really unhappy. I wanted to be at home more, because I was working crazy hours in management, of course. So first of all, I started to step down, so, you know, went down bands in nursing, and did kind of, you know, lower band, not lower, different banded jobs, so I'd have less responsibility. But really, if I was nursing, I'd want to be managing, because it's in my blood. That's what I did, and that's what I was good at. So eventually I left nursing due to several things. A, politics within the system, which is, we all know it's broken, and also quite more recent events, without going into detail. So I relinquished my registration and I went and worked at Boots for a little while, which was quite nice. But I just wasn't happy, and eventually I quit and my husband went back to work and I became Noah's full-time carer, which has allowed me now to carry on with my passion, and now this is what I'm doing full-time. You know, craft fairs, selling my wares, teaching, which is really my passion. Okay, so we're going to go through lots of things and I'm going to tell you everything that other people won't tell you. And you're going to be fantastic. So we're getting there. You can really start to see this taking shape, and I'm just working round. There's no mad rush. Mainly there's no mad rush because I'll link the, I'll put the timings in the description box, so you can avoid all of my rabbling, okay? It's not an issue. I know I talk a lot. But people who craft are my brethren. I get very excited to be with my brethren. These crafts need to be kept alive, and I feel really passionately about that, and about getting kids doing needlecraft as well. And I kind of feel a bit, you know, the word craft doesn't do it justice either. I feel like, and I don't want to be woke. I'm not being woke at all. I'm the least woke person. I am an awake person, not a woke person. There's a difference. I feel that craft kind of is connotations of, you know, ladies doing hobbies, when really it's art, you know? Maybe we should call it craft or something, and kind of give it its dues, that it is actually artistic and creative. Okay, this is really starting to take shape now, as you can see. And also where to felt. So when I'm saying work around, yes, work around, but as you can see, it's quite bobbly. So as I'm going around, what I'm doing is I'm looking for kind of those bobbles. So I'm not sure you can see that one on camera, kind of around here. And you can see where it bobbles up. Poke that, give that a poke, because they're the bits that need felting down. So you're working around, you're avoiding your fingers. And just keep going. Pumpkins are my favourite thing to do. I just find them so relaxing. It's characters that are my real passion, however. So they're the things that I'll show at craft shows and things, and that's really just to show your skill. So, you know, when you're selling kind of things like pumpkins, bookmarks, kind of the little gifty bits that people like. But it's good to show your skill and what you can do. So, because I couldn't really put a price on a character that I've made, because they take days and days and days, and they wake me up at night with thinking, oh, how am I going to do their hair? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? They take a lot out of me emotionally. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. So I've almost finished the Mario set. I don't know if you can quite catch them behind me. But they're all on TikTok, on the Woolly Workshop. And also, you'll notice on my channel there's been an introduction to the Woolly Witch. Well, I had a name change, because there seems to be a lot of Woolly Witches out there. So once we built this this little workshop I'm in now in the back garden, and I've always called it the Woolly Workshop, so even when we first ordered it, and It was always the Woolly Workshop, so it's just kind of stuck, so that's why we're on the Woolly Workshop. I like to think of it in my own little Asperger's mind, like a little Santa's workshop. But you know, that's just my mind. Okay, round and round and round. Looking good. And you need to get this felted down for the reasons as well that if you were to start adding colour now when it's still quite fluffy, as you can see it's kind of a donut shape, that's what I'm aiming for, flatter on the top and the bottom. If you started adding colour now, you'd be pulling all this core out because it's still too fluffy. So as I said, kind of look for the, again, don't be exacting, just look for the bits that are lumping out, kind of bulgy bits. They're the bits that aren't truly felted yet. Just keep going. It's going to look fantastic, trust the process. With felting as well, it's quite unique, I think, in the fact that it's really hard to see how good your piece is going to be until almost the last second. So making my characters, Princess Peach over there, right until I finally put the last piece, I think the crown was the last piece, put that crown on her, I was like, I'm not sure about this. And then I was really happy with her once she was done. So sometimes you're going to be looking at things thinking, oh, I'm not sure, but just keep going, just trust the process, okay? And trust me, I won't let you go far astray. Because if there's one thing I'm not, it's one of these people who's kind of snobby, and you get a very down-to-earth channel here. Okay, I will show you my triumphs, but I will show you my disasters. You'll see when things are going well, you'll see when I want to throw something out of the window. I tried the approach of being a very sensible grown-up, but it's just not me. It doesn't work. I have to be myself, and that's not going to be for everybody. But it's like anything, isn't there? There's other channels out there, and it's how you learn too. So from my days of managing, people learn differently, don't they? Some people absolutely loved my way of management, which is or was very down to earth, approachable. We can have a laugh, but we have to be serious when we need to be serious, and professional when we need to be professional. Other people don't like that. Other people would prefer a more authoritative, autocratic, do as I'd say type manager, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong in that. We just, if everyone was the same, life wouldn't be much fun, would it? So this is definitely the channel for people who, you know, don't take themselves too seriously. Let's say it like that. Okay, it's really starting to firm up now. And a way that you can tell as well that it's starting to firm up is that, move on to my next needle, is that it starts to feel a little bit crunchy. So I've moved on to my second needle. So that was my starter. Okay, now I've got to quite a good shape that I'm happy with. So now this is the 38. So it's higher, goes up in twos. So I started with a 36. This is now a 38, and this one feels less crunchy. So that's when you know to move on to your next needle up, is when it starts to feel a bit crunchy, but you're not done yet, because we're not quite there yet with this. We're not far off though. And this will perfect the shaping too. So I'll show you how I do the top and the bottom once I'm really happy with this shape. I do live right next to a school, so if you do hear screaming in the background, I haven't got some kind of weird freaky dungeon. It's actually just the kids in the playground behind me. Okay. And I didn't want to not be filming when they're out playing and things, because, you know, it's nice to hear kids playing. Okay, we're really starting to get the shape now. It's looking really good. Very happy with this. Happy with how it feels, happy with how it looks. Okay, it's not going to be long till we're adding colour now. So now it's just the fussy side of me that just wants to even things up a little bit. You can hear it now much more as well, so you can hear that this one's getting a little bit crunchy, so we're almost there. Just listen for the crunch. That is my top tip for today. I think my top tips are colour coding your needles. So go red, amber, green. You're never going to go wrong doing it that way. Or just write on them like this one where I put this start and join on there. Don't buy expensive core wool when you can use stuffing. And you know what, you can even get this stuff out of old cushions and things like that. So you might even have something in the house you can just grab a little bit out, because it's such tiny amounts that we're using as well. The next tip is when to change your needle. It's when you get the crunch and you get a bit of resistance on there. So you're going for a smaller needle, which is a higher number. Important to remember. And the next thing is depth. Okay, so this is something I didn't see on any videos when I was learning as well. No criticism to any other creators. This is just, I'm very, the autistic side of me very much appreciates every detail on everything that I learn. It's just the way that my mind works. So depth. So yeah, so when I'm doing this and I'm shaping and you're wanting to push all your fibres into the middle, because that's what we do, we're just pushing fibres all the way in, and it makes everything tangle up and meld and get it strong. That's essentially what we're doing. So I'm going all the way in, I'm pushing them, I'm push. I want to get them all the way in. This is the time when I'm stabbing my fingers and bleeding everywhere, because you're getting that right in there. Now, if you think about it, why would you want to go that deep when you add colour? Because if you're going to go that deep adding colour, you're going to be pushing your colour through the core, and you're going to start to find your core bleeding out into your colour. Now, you might like that look, and there's a reverse needle for that look to fluff things out and pull the core, and we'll go into that on a different project at some point. But generally you're not going for that look. So when you're adding the colour, I'll show you at the time, we're not going to be ramming it all the way in. We're going to be just pushing it just to add that colour and just to get it to kind of tangle on there. It's all about tangling. It's just, all we're doing is tangling fibres. But there's lots of things I want to teach you. So we can go on to wet felting, we can make all kinds of different things. I'll show you the process of making like a little character as well as I do those. I will do more TikTok lives. I've done a few already. I will do more. We're just working on the setup at the moment, so the cameras and stuff is still a work in progress. Lighting, cameras, you know, everything. And you know, I'm not one to spend a lot of money on these things, so we like to kind of find old bits and bobs and throw them together. Like the desk I'm working on here, once we'd ordered the Woolly Workshop, so that was an expense, but it wasn't a huge expense. Once we'd ordered the Woolly Workshop, the desk I'm working on, someone had put out the side of the road for someone to take. I think my bookcases behind me were £5 on like a Facebook marketplace. The drawers over there, they're actually from over there rather, they're from my son's primary school. They were going in the skip. So this is why I don't want you to spend a fortune on anything, because I'll give you all the tips I can to be a real true cheapskate, just like me. keep an eye out. If you're on TikTok, do keep an eye out. If you go onto TikTok on at Woolly Workshop, it's not the Woolly Workshop, it's just at Woolly Workshop, I will be doing more lives, so I tend to do my characters on there. But I'm going to show you on here how to make things from scratch, so you can really get some good little products under your belt. And these are great to sell as well. And bear in mind that we've been doing this for a little while now. I'm not sure I've got a timer on my, I'm not sure how long I've been doing this, but you can use a multi-tool. But as I said, I like the process. I like to really feel every poke that I do. I just find it really relaxing. It's good for my mind. Keeps my mind peaceful in these turbulent times. So just going around that edge a little bit. It's really firming up. Look at that. That's really firming up. When you think about how we started, which was just a little heap of wool. And I love that. I find that so rewarding. It's like you start with just that little pile of wool, and you start with some colours just sat there being nothing, and we're going to create something rather beautiful. And I just think there's no better feeling than that. Okay. It's getting quite crunchy now. But I can just see a few little bobbles that I want to kind of sort out. Okay. My problem is knowing when to stop, because I'm a perfectionist, and everything I do I tend to add another 5 minutes on of just kind of faffing. That's the technical term. Okay, so there we go. There's a pumpkin. Now, next, just decide on your top and your bottom. It shouldn't really matter. They're quite similar. I just think the way that sits, it's got more of a curve on the top. So I'm going to go for this as my top, and I'm going to go back to my starter needle, which is the coarser needle, and I'm just going to work round in a little circle just to give it some definition. And not much, because we'll do that more once we've got the colour on, but just add a little bit of definition there. Again, it doesn't have to be central, it's a pumpkin. I'm yet to see a perfect pumpkin, okay? So that's absolutely fine. And I kind of like that, because that will sit almost with the stalk going up that way as well, and that'll look really nice. Okay, so there's just that little bit of, and at the bottom, I'm really just kind of marking around about the centre, so where I'm going to be putting my stalk and the base. I can't think of a word for that, but there must be a word for that, but I'm not thinking of. Okay, so that's just kind of marked it out, and we are ready for colour. So on to adding the colour on now. Okay, so with regards to the needle, as I showed you in the beginning, I had the three. So I had the starting and the joining. We've done that. That can go. And then we did the firming and the shaping. We've done that. That can go. And so now we're left with my, it's in a purple handle, but it's a blue 40 triangular needle. This is for details and smoothing, and I'm going to use this to add the colour. There's probably multiple ways and preferences with different people on what they like to use to add their colour, but I like to use this. Okay, so here we go. So with the wool, so here we go, I've got my Corriedale, and it is silver marigold. Now that's 100 grams. Okay, so when I first started out and I decided to buy myself a few colours to make pumpkins to sell, I went online to buy a few colours, and there was kind of like 25 grams, 50 grams. I'm thinking that's not a lot, you know, because I bake, and I thought that's not a lot. So I ordered 100 grams. It turns out there's loads. There's loads on 100 grams. So just for reference, that's the kind of size you're looking at. Okay. Now, the way we're going to get this wool off is we never cut Well, we do cut in certain circumstances. However, for this purpose, you know, just doing your general felting, you don't cut. So I'm going to find the end, which could be easier said than done. Ah, there we go. Okay, now what we're going to do, there might still be like little bits, you can find little bits still in it. Just pull that out, there we go. So that's your corridor. Now what we're going to do to separate it is, we're not going to cut because that's going to give a really, really harsh edge. So what you do is you're just going to pull, okay? So just pull and let it come away naturally at its weakest point, okay? And that will come off. And then we're going to lay that on to our pumpkin. It's such a beautiful wool, this is. Now if you're like me and you get excited about wool, stationery and crafting bits and pieces, you know, I really feel you, I understand. I love this stuff. Okay, so then you just lay it onto your pumpkin, and I go around like that, almost like a chocolate orange, like the little segments. Take your needle, and what I'm going to do is I'm essentially going to tack it, so the outside, so I'm going to go around the edge of the outside of where I've placed that wool, because that tacks it into place. And there, and look, I'm not going as deep, am I, as because when we were firming and shaping, I was going all the way in, up to the hilt at times. Now I'm just going just to where the little bevels end. That's it. We don't need to be aggressive with it. So we're just going to tack that on, and I tack it on all the way around, and then we're just going to felt. It's a really, really nice wool. So Corriedale is most people's preferences for your general felting. Merino's also lovely. Merino is super soft. So when we say about carded, it's really, really carded. So it's soft, soft, soft. Carding is just brushing it out, really, making the fibres all lay one way. And the more of the fibres that are laying in one direction, the softer that wool is. And this is going on really, really well. So we're just going to do this until it just looks well attached, but not pushed through. I will pull those, I'm just going to pull those off there a little bit. And don't worry too much about just covering where we made that little impression there, because we'll be adding the complementary colour onto there. So just go in, that's looking lovely. So then you're ready for your next piece. So pull again. I'll probably lay it opposite. You can fold that under as well sometimes, because I don't want to get too much in that middle part. You can fold it under a bit. That's it. So then tack it around the edge. Up both sides. And then work. And what I'll do is I'll finish this colour and then we'll come back to. So I just want to show you a couple of things actually. Now this is nearly covered. Just another couple of tips for you. So first of all, it's really important to follow the natural lines of a project. So when I'm doing, say when I did kind of Super Mario or Peach, and you do a face and they've got like their nose on and things, I always follow the natural curve of a piece. So what I'm trying to say really clumsily is I've left a little piece here because there's just a little, you might find you get some just little gappy bits and you just want to cover them, just the tiniest bit there, just want to cover. So get a tiny bit of wool, remember just to pull that off, let that separate really naturally. But when you place it on, always follow the natural curvature of the piece, okay? Because if you go and put it on this way, it's gonna, that's gonna show up. So every piece I've placed on has all been around the natural curvature of the pumpkin. Also, hold your wool into place so it doesn't bunch up too much, and then just work on that just to smooth that in. And that's lovely. This wool has given it a lovely rustic effect. I love it. So let's just get that in. And also, because you're doing that, you'll end up with kind of a fluffy piece here and a fluffy piece there. You can trim that down. I trimmed it down with my clippers that I don't use very often, but if you end up with quite a big bunch and you felt that in, it's going to look messy. So I trim that down, and then I can use that to push that in and give the definition where we want it, where we put it earlier. So I just wanted to show you that. So we've followed the curvature of the pumpkin and everything's kind of nice and lined up now. Okay, you can see some little pinpricks in there, but they will go, they kind of plump out over time. So I'm just going to get my coarse needle again and just go back into where we made our definition, and that will also push in these little stray fibres that I trimmed. And this time we can be quite aggressive because we're going to make this impression now, so it's a guide for where we put the detail on. Now I don't want this bang central, as I've said before. I like them to have a bit of personality. Okay, so there's the impression that I can work off from the top, and I need the same on the bottom. So let's go, I'll just poke those ones in because they need to go in, but they're not going to form part of the base there. So as you can see, I'm going in very gently there, and now where we want to make this impression, gentle around the edge, and then we can be more aggressive where we want the base to be. Okay, again, doesn't have to be perfect, and that's the beauty of pumpkins. It does not have to be a perfect circle because we're going for a rustic pumpkin. I'm just going to neaten up my detail needle again and just neaten up around the edge there. So we're ready to add detail. And any other bits, if you kind of spot any bits as you're going around and think, oh, that bit could do with a little bit more felting, you've got plenty of time to do that at the end, because when you're doing your definition as well down the sides, it kind of pushes up between sometimes. So you're going to be working on the surface of this pumpkin right up until it's finished now. Okay, so there we have the basic pumpkin, and the next step is going to be to add the detail. So we have progress. Okay, so I've done one of the little definition lines down here, down this side, and I'm going to show you how to do this. And again, it's perfectly easy, and we are going to be going back to our first needle. So this is our needle for coarser fibres, so it's going to be a lower number. So this is our 36. Okay, here is the wool that I'm using for the definition. So you just pull a little piece off like this, and what we're going to do is we're going to work across. So we're going to go across one way, then we're going to go across the next way, and kind of keep going, and it just helps you kind of keep a track of where you are. So we've done this side, so I'm just going to turn it because I'm right-handed and it's easier that way, and I'm just going to look. So if that starts there, I want it to be quite straight, these lines. So it's going round like that. But what you do with this, you pull off just the tiniest sliver off, and then I'm just going to twist it a few times. Not too many times, you don't want a really thick twist because you're going to struggle to get your needle through it and felt it. So a few twists, and you can twist as you go down anyway. It's just a couple of twists. Place it where you want to begin, which is going to be outside of your defined area anyway, because we don't want to pile this area with too much wool. Okay, so I'm going to start about there, and I'm going to bring it round to where I want it to sit, which is here, and keep it taut. It's really important that you keep it taut, because otherwise it's just going to bunch up and work back on itself. Okay, so coarse needle, and we're pushing that. Remember what felting is, we're pushing this in. Now, unlike adding the colour, where we don't want to push it so far in, this we do, because we're wanting these real defined lines down the pumpkin. So I'll just twist again, just make it look nice and straight, and just let me rejig that a little bit. And I'm going round to there. So I might just pin my other end. So if I secure that by felting it, and as I said earlier, when we're giving this definition, it's going to push these bits up on either side. So just using this needle, you don't have to be faffing, swapping about needles, just give it a gentle, just a little gentle poke there, so we don't kind of separate the colour too much. So that's in place, but now I really want to get that in firm. So we're going to push quite deep into there, all down the line. You will get quicker at doing this, but initially it's just about getting your lines kind of relatively straight and in place where you want them. And we will be adding more as well, so don't worry when you're doing this first part, don't worry if it pushes quite far in and you're thinking, well, I'm losing my colour. It doesn't matter. See, it's thinned out there on the top a little bit, so I'm going to be wanting to add some there, but I want this right in to start puckering this pumpkin on either side. Like this. If it disappears in, we're not going to worry too much, because we can add more. Just pop into the sides, but only gently on there. Okay, so now we need some more, so just take off just a small part, not too thick, about that. And also, if it's quite thin on the end, it doesn't matter, because we're going to trim these ends, so just give it a twist and start working with it wherever you feel happy. So probably about there and round, and push that, neaten that, push that into place. I'm trying not to put my head in the way of the camera, because I tend to work very hunched over, so it's sometimes hard to resist the urge. So let's push that in. And everything's by eye at this point. If you feel it needs to be a bit thicker, add a little bit. Easier to add than to take away, so I'd rather add a few strands than do a line that's really thick and then not be happy with it. Okay, give it a nice push into there. Let's get that definition. So then I'll show you how we're going to deal with the ends. So you see you've got quite a loose end there. Now you might even want to leave that as an embellishment at the end. That'd look quite nice, but we're going to do some curls on the next video, so I'm not going to keep that. So I'm just going to trim, and then using my coarse needle, the coarse is going to do all of this part. go up and down the lines anyway, and just make sure we've got some definition there. So next, this piece probably isn't long enough to demonstrate, but so next we're going to work across that way in 2 pieces. There's no reason you couldn't go in 1 piece. However, I prefer not to, because I like to leave this little space at the top, because I don't like to pile that with too much wool. So we can go from here, work out where you're going to there. Okay, and I'll come back when I've done a few more. So we're at the point now, we have a pumpkin, and it looks like a pumpkin, which is always good. So there we go. That definition looks really good. It really gives it the pumpkin look, that does. So this is where we should be now. We should have essentially our pumpkin. Okay, so that's looking great. So now it's just finishing touches. So back to, I'm going to go for my my second wool, which is this one, which I love. I love this colour, really love this colour. I never want to run out of it because I don't know where it came from. Okay, so now let me just find the top and the bottom. That's going to be my bottom, I think. So just a little bit of wool. Again, it's always easier to add than to take away. So there we go, just take some of that. Okay, I'm just going to wrap that around my finger. Doesn't have to be neat at all. Just make a little blob. And then I'm going to use my my 38 needle. I haven't forgotten about the finer needle. I'll probably be using that more for the stalk, I think, and maybe just some neating in, just some smoothing around the pumpkin later. So 38 triangular. And another thing as well is your needles are great for so many things, so you can place the wool as you're working with it. So it's really easy to kind of form it into a circle. Just keep playing with it, just keep popping it round the edges. Make it bend to your will. We're the boss of the wool. We might not be boss of anything else, but we're the boss of the wool. Okay. So let's, again, it's the forgiving pumpkin. Doesn't matter if it's perfectly round, doesn't matter if it's lumpy bumpy, it doesn't matter. It's gonna look fantastic, and I really want to see in the comments people who have done this and are happy with what they've done, or not happy. And if you need any got any questions or anything, just pop it and I'll have a look and I'll do my best to help. I'd especially love to see photos. You can't put photos in the comments, but I would love to see what people have done. But I could always pop up my workshop email at some point, so just keep going. Again, we're not going too deep there. We don't need to go too deep. We don't want to be changing really the shape of the pumpkin at this point, because we're happy with where we are. But look at that, that's starting to look really good, if I do say so myself. But I'm sure yours is looking equally as fantastic, probably better than mine, to be fair. Okay, let's, and I don't want this too flat, I don't want it too smooth, because I want it to look rustic. I want it to look natural. You know, pumpkins are from nature. This isn't supposed to be perfect, every line equal, and you know, you've got to give it that natural rustic, like it's just come out of a pumpkin patch effect. Okay, we're getting there. I'll just do it till I'm happy, really, until I kind of look at it and think, yeah, that looks like the face of a pumpkin. And we are almost there, I would say. Like, I want it felted, but I don't want it smooth felted, if that makes sense. Just want it to look like, there's none of those like puffy bits that I showed you earlier with the core. where you know it needs felting down. Just go around that edge a little bit. Now that bit there, as you can see, just round here, that looks slightly different, but that's the variations. I don't know how clear you can see it on the camera. That's just the variations of the colour, and that's where some paler wool has fallen. And that is absolutely fine by me. Okay, so that's the base. Let's move on to the top. So let's turn our pumpkin. Okay, so for the top, I want a bigger slice of the wool than for the base, because we need the stalk. Okay, so I'm going to pull about, I'll just thin that out. If you're having a job separating it, just thin it out a little bit and it will start to come. Okay, come on, come on. So about that much. Now how I do my stalk is as follows. So you don't want it particularly neat, so it doesn't matter if you pick up your fibres and they start to, you can see they're going kind of a bit skew-if. It's absolutely fine because we are going for the rustic look. It's not a problem. So I'm just going to fold it over, okay, like that. And then I'm going to start to felt about here, around about where we want the base of that that stalk to be. Okay, I'm going to use my 38, and you'll see it start to flatten out there, and just turn it. Turn it, kind of twist it round there, it's all fine. Now work up a little bit to the top, because that's holding together, you see, so I don't have to worry too much. So just, and what I'm going to do when I'm doing the top is I'm going to keep turning it around like so. But I'm also going to start to just make a slight impression in the top. So go round and round. These colours are amazing, the way they're blending together, absolutely beautiful. So just go round, a bit more on that base there, work around, doesn't matter kind of what order once you get to this point. I'm going to pick up my finest needle, which is the 40, and I'm just going to, watch your fingers, I'm just going to start to poke it into that top. You see there? Can you see that? Might be a bit tricky. I'm just going to poke it in, because we're going to start to want that little impression there for the stalk. So let me go a bit more on the base. I'll go a bit further down here. I don't want too much below the stalk. It's just enough to join it to the pumpkin, really. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of jiggery pokery. Don't overfelt this top, we don't want to squash it, just do it gently. Be aware of the kind of shape you're trying to achieve. Just keep popping in the top there and through. I'm going to use my detailing needle once I'm almost happy with this. Around that stalk again. It starts to take shape. It's like woolly alchemy. It starts to take its own shape with little manipulation from us. So then round, we want this to be relatively round at the top. And I'm just, you know, where I see my colours and things, just blend a little bit, just so they look nice and kind of melded together. That orange coming in there is beautiful. There's a little bit of a bit coming up there, so just felt that in. Right, I'm going to go on to my fine detail now and work around through there. Okay. So I'll just spend a few minutes really just doing this, just until I'm at my happy place. Keep going back through that middle, keep revisiting that, and as that pulls on the fibres just slightly higher, just meld those in a bit more. It doesn't need a load of work. This is actually the easiest piece of the whole pumpkin because the rest of it takes quite a bit of work. Although you will get faster, and as I said, if you use a multi-tool, once you're happy with the process and you know, you fancy investing in a multi-tool, go for it, and your actual base pumpkin will take no time at all. No time at all. But when you're just starting out, I just think it's better to keep it really simple. Okay, see, I just poked my finger. There's no blood, but probably a good time to wear finger protectors. So that's really starting to take shape now. I'm just going to work underneath because I haven't really touched that part, and we don't want it to start to come away or anything down the line, and that just gives it just that little bit more definition, doesn't it? Okay, I'm about happy with that. I'm liking that. So if you kind of keep just putting it to your pumpkin and thinking, you know, is that, I think that looks pretty good. Yeah. So I'm going to leave these long ends on while I fix this in, and then there might be a little bit of a trim, because very much like the bottom, I kind of want that around the stalk once it's in. So just place it on, feather out your felt. Okay. Now remember this one, this is the 36, the green triangular, so this is starting and joining. So as we're joining a piece to another piece, this is the ideal needle to use. And we're just going to be aware of kind of that circle that we have, the indentation we made, because that's where we're working around now. And we're just going to go all the way around the base. I do like my stalk as well to kind of sit on a bit of an angle, because it just looks more natural than kind of being straight up. But I'm just concentrating on joining at the moment. So when you're joining, you can push that needle in a little bit deeper. I don't want to push it all the way, but just a little bit deeper. It will feel and sound a bit crunchy, and that's okay. Okay. So I'm just going to work a little bit around the bottom of the stalk as well with some of this wool. And you can bend it back and have a look what you're doing, that's okay. If you've joined it well, it shouldn't dislike that too much. And then bend it this way. And again. All the way around. Okay. Now again, this actually wouldn't be the worst decoration either. You could leave that on and then add some curls onto that. That would be fine. But I'm going to trim. So I'm just going to trim, so there's a bit left round there. The bits I trim off as well, they will go back to my wool, they won't be wasted. What I'll do is I'll card those back in, and I'll do another video on carding, but so I don't like to waste any of it, especially when it's that beautiful. Let's take a little bit more off. Okay, so now we're just going to spend a little bit of time with our coarse needle, just getting those fibres in. Don't worry too much about crazy neatness, it doesn't matter. Okay, I'll just work on getting that a little bit neater for you. So I've done a little bit of neatening there. I kind of bent the stalk a little bit. I'm using my coarse needle. You kind of need to push it down and want it a bit more stumpy, you can just kind of push it in and then felt and give it a bit of welly. But I think that's looking pretty good. And if you stayed with me this far, you should have a pumpkin, which is absolutely fantastic. So the next video I'm going to make will be for the embellishments. So the picture that is showing below me, that is the pumpkin with the embellishments on. So I'm going to show you how to make some really simple curls. As long as you have some wool, so we'll be using this colour wool, the second colour that you've used for your pumpkin, we can make some really pretty curls and get those on there. So well done, fantastic. Any comments leave below, please do follow, please do subscribe. There's going to be loads and loads of content going forward, and I've really enjoyed this, so thank you so much.